The backyard was decorated with silver and blue balloons. A banner read, "Congratulations, Dr. Hayes." Across the patio, 30 people milled around, congratulating me on finishing my doctorate in biochemistry. 7 years of research, 4 published papers, and a dissertation defense that had gone better than I'd hoped. My sister, Nicole, arrived an hour late with her 6-year-old son, Tyler. She didn't apologize for being late or congratulate me on the degree. She just grabbed a plate of food and sat at the far table, scrolling through her phone while Tyler ran around unsupervised. I was talking with my former advisor when I heard glass break. Tyler had knocked over someone's wine glass while chasing another kid. Nicole glanced up, shrugged, and went back to her phone. I excused myself and cleaned up the mess, smiling at the guests and making light of it. Kids will be kids. 20 minutes later, I was standing near the gift table where I'd set my framed diploma, the official one from the university, embossed and sealed, representing 7 years of work. My advisor had just handed me a card when Tyler ran up, grabbed the diploma off the table, and before I could react, ripped it down the middle. The tearing sound cut through the conversation. People turned to stare. Tyler held up the torn pieces and shouted at full volume, "Mom says you're not smart. She says you just read books all day and waste money." The backyard went silent. Nicole walked over, looked at the destroyed diploma, and high-fived her son. Then she laughed. Not a nervous or embarrassed laugh, a genuine, amused one. "He's not wrong," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. 7 years for a piece of paper. Must be nice to play student while the rest of us work real jobs. I stood there holding the torn pieces of my diploma. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. I just looked at my sister, at her smirking face, at her son who was mimicking her laughter. "Understood," I said quietly. I handed the pieces to my best friend, walked inside my house, and grabbed my laptop and phone. Then I got in my car and left my own graduation party. I drove to a coffee shop and sat in the corner booth. My phone buzzed with messages from concerned guests, but I ignored them. Instead, I opened my laptop and accessed my property management account. 3 years ago, I bought a small apartment building as an investment, 4 units. The property manager handled tenant screening, rent collection, and maintenance. I purchased it outright using money from research grants, teaching assistantships, and a small inheritance from my grandfather. Nicole lived in Unit 2B. She'd applied through the normal channels, and my property manager had approved her without knowing she was my sister. I'd kept the ownership private, operating through an LLC. Nicole paid $1,200 a month in rent, often 5 to 10 days late, sometimes with insufficient funds fees she'd complain about in family group texts. I pulled up her file. She was currently 8 days late on this month's rent. She had been late 17 times in the past 36 months. The lease clearly stated that habitual late payment constituted grounds for non-renewal or termination. I drafted an email to my property manager with specific instructions, attached documentation of the late payment pattern, and sent it. Then I called him directly. "Tom, this is Dr. Hayes. I need to discuss Unit 2B. The tenant was always late. What about her? I want to begin eviction proceedings based on the habitual late payment clause in the lease. Pull the documentation and file the notice first thing tomorrow morning." "Are you sure? That's a pretty aggressive move. Most landlords give more chances than we already have." "I'm sure. File it at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. I want the notice served by 9. Your property, your call. I'll have our attorney draft it tonight." I hung up and sat in the coffee shop until it closed. Then I drove to a hotel and got a room. I didn't want to go home and face the aftermath of my ruined party. The next morning at 8:30, Tom texted me a photo, the eviction notice, posted on Nicole's door. Official, legal, and undeniable. My phone started ringing at 8:45. Nicole's name flashed across the screen 14 times in a row. I let every call go to voicemail. The messages escalated from confused to angry to panicked about the eviction notice and the habitual late payment clause. At 10 o'clock, my mother called. "Nicole says she's being evicted. Do you know anything about this?" Why would I know anything about Nicole's housing situation? "She said the landlord is being unreasonable. Something about late payments. Can you help her? Maybe you could lend her money for a lawyer?" No. No. Just like that? She's your sister. She has a child. She's an adult with a lease agreement she violated repeatedly. That's between her and her landlord." Mom sighed. "You're still upset about yesterday. I know Tyler shouldn't have torn your diploma. But kids do things like that. Nicole said she didn't realize it was the real one. Tyler repeated exactly what Nicole told him, word for word. That I'm not smart, that I waste money, and Nicole rewarded him for it. She high-fived him, Mom, in front of 30 people at my graduation party. She was joking. You're too sensitive. I'm not sensitive. I'm just done. Nicole has her own problems to solve now. I'm not getting involved. I hung up. By noon, my phone had exploded with messages. Nicole had told the whole family about the eviction, painting herself as a victim. She posted in the family group chat asking if anyone knew a tenant rights lawyer. My brother sent me a private message. Can you believe Nicole's landlord? Evicting a single mom over being a few days late with rent. I didn't respond. At 2 o'clock, Tom called me. Your tenant requested a meeting with the property owner. She's claiming harassment and wants to negotiate. Set it up. Tomorrow at your office. 2 o'clock. You're coming in person? Yes. The next afternoon, I arrived at Tom's office at 1:45. He prepared a folder with Nicole's complete rental history, every late payment, every NSF fee, every warning notice she'd ignored or complained about. Nicole arrived at 2 o'clock sharp. She walked into the conference room where I was sitting next to Tom, and her face went from determined to confused to shocked in about 3 seconds. What are you doing here? She asked. I own the building, I said calmly. I'm the landlord. She stared at me. That's not possible. You're a student. You don't have money. I have a doctorate in biochemistry, 3 years of postdoctoral research income, teaching income, grant income, and an inheritance from Grandpa Hayes. I bought the building 3 years ago. You applied to rent Unit 2B through the normal channels. My property manager approved you without knowing our relationship. You've been my landlord this whole time? Yes. And you're evicting me? Yes. She looked at Tom, then back at me. Because I hurt your feelings about the diploma? This is insane. You can't evict someone because you're upset. I'm evicting you because you've been late with rent 17 times in 36 months. The lease clearly states that habitual late payment is grounds for termination. You've violated the lease repeatedly. This has nothing to do with feelings. I always pay, just sometimes a few days late. 8 to 12 days late, consistently, which incurs late fees, NSF fees, and creates administrative burden. You've also complained publicly in family texts about those fees that exist because you can't pay rent on time. Tom slid the folder across the table. This is your complete payment history, every late payment documented with dates and amounts. Nicole opened the folder and flipped through the pages. Her face grew redder with each one. So what, you've been keeping score this whole time, waiting for a chance to kick me out? I've been operating a rental property professionally. You've been violating your lease chronically. The eviction is based solely on your failure to comply with the terms you signed. This is because of the diploma. Admit it. You're doing this because Tyler tore up your stupid piece of paper. Tyler tore up my diploma because you told him I wasn't smart. You encouraged him to disrespect me publicly at my graduation party in front of my colleagues and friends. Then you laughed about it. That showed me who you are. But the eviction is based on documented lease violations that existed long before yesterday. Where am I supposed to go? I have a kid. That's not my concern. You have 60 days to vacate per state law. That gives you time to find new housing. I can't afford first and last month's rent somewhere else. Do you know how much that costs? $1,200 times 2, $2,400, plus whatever security deposit the new place requires. Yes, I know exactly what it costs. I'm a landlord. She stood up, her chair scraping loudly. This is revenge. Pure revenge because your ego got bruised. This is a business decision based on your documented failure to pay rent on time. If you'd like to challenge the eviction, you're welcome to hire an attorney and go to court. The judge will see the same documentation you're looking at. 17 late payments in 36 months are more than enough to justify eviction for lease violation. You're really doing this? Yes. After everything we've been through as sisters. What have we been through, Nicole? You've spent years telling people I'm wasting my time with education. You've called my career playing student. You've mocked my research. You taught your 6-year-old son to tell me I'm not smart. You destroyed my diploma and laughed about it. What exactly is the sisterly bond you're referring to? She opened her mouth, closed it, then grabbed her purse. The family is going to hear about this. They already have, you told them. What you didn't tell them is that I'm the landlord you've been complaining about for 3 years, the one who charges unfair late fees when you don't pay on time. the one whose property you've been living in while insulting me at every family gathering." She left without another word. That evening my mother called. "Nicole told me you own her building. Is that true?" "Yes." "And you're evicting her?" "Yes." "How could you do this to your sister? How could she destroy my diploma and teach her child to mock my education? How could she laugh about humiliating me in front of 30 people at my graduation party?" "That was wrong, but this is extreme. She has a child. You're making them homeless." "I'm enforcing a lease agreement she's violated repeatedly for 3 years. She has 60 days to find housing. That's more than enough time if she starts looking immediately instead of trying to make me the villain. Everyone thinks you're being cruel. Everyone doesn't know she's been chronically late with rent for 3 years. Everyone doesn't know I've been subsidizing her housing through lenient late fee policies while she tells the family I'm not smart enough for real work. Everyone doesn't have the documentation I have. Still, she's family. Family who treats me like I'm worthless for pursuing education. Family who destroyed something I worked 7 years to achieve and laughed about it. I'm done subsidizing that treatment." Mom hung up without saying goodbye. The family group chat exploded with people taking sides. My brother sent me a private message. "Heard your side. Nicole's been late with rent for 3 years? And you're the landlord she always complains about?" I muted the group chat and focused on my work. Nicole moved out 58 days later, 2 days before the eviction deadline. She left the apartment in acceptable condition. Tom processed her security deposit return, minus cleaning fees and repair costs for damaged blinds. She didn't speak to me at family gatherings after that. When people asked about the rift, she told a vague story about a business dispute. She never mentioned the diploma, the insults, or the chronic late rent payments. I got my diploma reprinted. The university charged me $50 for a replacement, but it was identical to the original. I framed it and hung it in my home office, next to my published papers and my research awards. 6 months later, I was at a family dinner. Nicole was there with Tyler. He ran up to me and said, unprompted, "Mom says I shouldn't have ripped your paper. She says you're actually really smart." I looked over at Nicole. She was staring at her plate, her face red. "Thank you, Tyler," I said. "I appreciate that." He ran off to play. Nicole and I didn't speak beyond basic pleasantries. I later learned from my brother that Nicole had struggled to find a new apartment. Her rental history showed the eviction, and several landlords had turned her down. She eventually found a place, but the rent was $1,400 a month instead of $1,200, and they required 2 months' deposit because of the eviction on her record. She also had to borrow money from our parents for the deposit, money she was supposedly paying back in monthly installments. I felt no satisfaction in that information, just a quiet recognition that actions have consequences, that you can't destroy someone's achievements, mock their life choices, and expect them to continue making your life easier. My property manager found a new tenant for Unit 2B within 2 weeks. They pay on time, every month, without complaint. I still own the building. I still maintain it well, charge fair rent, and operate professionally. And I still have my doctorate, my research, and my career, the things Nicole called not smart, while living in a building purchased with income from that very career. The irony isn't lost on me. I don't think it's lost on her either now. Some people think I was too harsh, that family deserves more chances, more grace, more tolerance. But I learned something important that day at my graduation party. Being family doesn't give someone the right to destroy your achievements and mock your worth while benefiting from your success. Nicole lived in my building for 3 years while telling people I wasn't smart. She paid rent, late but eventually, while calling my career a waste. She destroyed my diploma while depending on income from the education she belittled. I gave her 60 days and proper legal notice. I followed every law, honored every regulation, and documented everything. That's more grace than she gave my doctorate diploma. More grace than she gave my graduation party. More grace than she gave 7 years of work she summed up as not smart. I can live with my decision. She has to live with hers. And Tyler, hopefully, learns that words matter, actions matter, and you can't destroy what someone else has built without consequences, especially when you're living in